Hello, and welcome to an episode of Todd Talks. When Todd Talks, people listen. I will see a new world be born, and I have to destroy this one to get it. Hopefully. Today, we're talking about a very interesting matchup between two of anime's more recent impactful villains. We have Tomura Shigaraki versus Mahito. Yes, My Hero Academia versus Jujutsu Kaisen. And this one was very interesting to look into for various reasons that we will dive into. But first, Tomura Shigaraki, or, as you might know him, Tenko Shimura. How does that work? Well, in the world of My Hero Academia, 80% of the population is born with a special ability or quirk. Now, the greatest of these quirks go on to become some of the greatest heroes of the entire world, but some people, they have quirks that make them a bit dangerous. Let's get dangerous. No, we're not getting Doc Breeding Duck, but if we did, dang. Duck battle, just saying. We had Donald versus Daffy in DBX. This makes them dangerous, and society has a bad habit of turning against those who are seemingly dangerous. And in Tenko Shimura's case, he had a quirk that manifested during the abuse that he had in his home. Because while his mother and fellow family members and dog loved him, his father did not. Because his father was the son of Nina Shimura, the mentor of All Might, and one of the vestiges of One for All. And in an effort to ensure that One for All, or All for One, did not hurt her family, she willingly gave her son away, and he instantly resented her for it and grew up hating Hero Society because his mother left him, as he transferred that hatred and abuse, perceived abuse, onto Tenko. And this eventually manifested his quirk, which is decay. If he can get all 5 fingers around somebody or something, it will instantly decay, killing them, or in certain cases, decaying a certain body part. Like, say, if he grabbed my arm, if I could cut off my arm before the decay spreads, I would be alright. I would be disarmed. But yes, this started the series of unfortunate events that would define his life, because being in a hero society, Tenko thought, I just need to find a hero, and he's trying to find someone to help me explain this itch that I have and to help me control my powers. But no one would help him, because they thought, oh, the heroes will come along eventually. They'll help him. No one gave Tenko a chance, except for a guy named All for One. Yep. Or as the preview labeled him, the devil. Ooh. Yeah. All for One had a plan. The ultimate... No, how did he do it? My next ultimate, unforgivable, diabolical plan. Devil Artemis reference. League of Memes, everybody go and watch that. It's hilarious. But he had an unforgivable plan to mold Tenko Shimura into the ultimate villain that could help disrupt Hero Society forever. But he couldn't do that as Tenko Shimura, so he was reborn as Tomura Shigaraki. And to help seal his villainy, All for One took the hands of the family members he killed and crafted them into items that Tomura would wear all over his body as a symbol of what he was, so that he would never forget the hatred and rage that was caused within him because of his family. And eventually, as time went on, and All for One groomed, there's no other term for it, groomed Shigaraki for his purpose, Hero Society continued to grow until eventually it was time to launch the first attack of the League of Villains, which Shigaraki headed up. And his ultimate goal wasn't just to destabilize the country, but to get rid of All Might. All Might, of course, the symbol of peace. I am here! You know the guy. He was in Death Battle too. He died. I'm going to be saying that a bit about My Hero characters. Shoto won, though. Go Shoto. Zuko, why? But he launched it. Shigaraki launched the first attack of the League of Villains at the USJ, not Universal Studios Japan, the other place. And he was soundly defeated by the Class 1A kids and All Might who showed up. And usually this would be the point where, okay, he wasn't the real villain, the real villain was coming, and so on and so forth. But that actually wasn't the case. Because not unlike Shigaraki's rival in Izuku Midoriya, who also died in Death Battle. Take that, Detroit. Not one of the best episodes. He had to grow. He had to learn, and through the League of Villains and his interactions with them and others, he did become the overarching villain that this not only the series needs, but he needed to be to become this ultimate villain. And that included helping his old master, All For One, after his defeat, his final defeat at the hands of All Might. But All For One doesn't really go down, now does he? No. See, as part of his unforgivable plan, All For One had his scientist, Shigaraki or something like that, experiment on Tomura to the point where his body was basically killed, reborn, put in a suspended state of death. Say that 5 times fast. And eventually able to merge with the All For One quirk. Remember that All For One is a quirk, just like One For All is a quirk. And because of that fusion, an eventual full-on merging with All For One, Tomura Shigaraki evolved to the next level of arch-villain. And he was a terror. All right? In one shot, he was able to decay an entire city. Remember what I said about the whole 5 fingers thing? That technically doesn't apply to him anymore. He can do various levels of decay just by wrapping a couple fingers around you, which is what he did to Reed Destro in their fight. He also was able to not just decay items, but decay items that were connected to the items. So, a nice reverberation effect that made his decay quirk all the more insane. And because he was now officially fused with All For One, he had all the quirks that All For One had within him. Because remember, All For One could steal quirks, manipulate quirks, fuse quirks, force quirks to activate, and so on and so forth. And so basically any technique that All For One had, Shigaraki had. And because of that, the League of Villains was able to do the final war on Hero Society. Now, I know this is going to be getting into heavy spoilers for My Hero Academia, so I need to talk about them because it's important. But if you want to skip a minute or two ahead, that's fine. But with the quirks that he had, which are so numerous, I'm not even going to label them all, but there's ones like Surge, Radio Waves, Air Cannon, Detonation, Explosion, which are 2 different things. I promise they're 2 different things. There's Tendrils, there's arm growth and manipulation, like if you all remember the fight with All For One and All Might, where he did like that big arm with the spikes coming out of it. That's a fusion of quirks. He can improve his defense, he can improve his offense, he's got massive regeneration skills. That was partly because of All For One, partly because of the experiments he went under from that doctor. What's up, doc? And so on and so forth. And this made him like the most insane threat that the Hero Society had ever gone up against. And a lot of them died. I mean, if you remember when he was awoken, a simple touch of his decay killed an entire hero, like one of the top 10 heroes, I believe it was, without much effort. It was a very the anime gets dark when it wants to. Okay, we haven't got to Jujutsu Kaisen. So how did Shigaraki get stopped? Well, there's a couple layers to that, and this is where the spoilers come in. In the final war, Deku was pretty much depowered, and the final battle took place not necessarily on the physical plane, but on the mental and spiritual one. I know this doesn't sound like My Hero Academia, but it's true. The vestiges of All For One, just like One For All, were key players in the final battle. And eventually, All For One tried to take over Shigaraki's mind in full. That was his whole master plan, to groom this kid and then literally take over his body and mind. The twist was that Shigaraki don't play like that. Okay? He fought back and even used his own origin story to manipulate All For One in such a way even though we find out that All for One was actually the creator of Shigaraki, not his father, but like the overlord, the manipulator, the puppet master. He made him get abused, and yeah, and he was the one who actually gave him the decay quirk. That was All for One. Okay. But Shigaraki fought back and was like, no, I am my own man. I'm going to destroy this world in my own way. You can back the heck off. And because of that, the heroes were able to attack the vestiges, destroying Shigaraki's body, and then eventually, with one final shot from Deku, was able to destroy All for One's soul, basically, and free Tomura / Tenko one last time, allowing him to move on to the afterlife. But it was anything but easy. And even though it's implied via the manga's final panels that he did get a happy ending because he actually smiled at Deku after a time jump, he's still one of the most dangerous characters that anime has ever produced by far, because he has taken down Redestro, Star and Stripe, which, yeah, that one, yeah. He's beaten Deku, he's beaten Endeavor, he's beaten Mirko, he's beaten Bakugo, he's taken like all of their best attacks and kept going. Again, physically, he was better than basically all of them. All right, and at full power, Deku struggled against Shigaraki. So that should show you the scale that we're talking about here. So when it comes to power, now his weaknesses are that he's not exactly the most stable dude ever, but he uses that to his advantage. Yeah, he's reckless, but it's because he knows he can get away with it. And other times he's willing to evolve and adapt. As it's even stated that his quirks evolve and adapt as the battle goes on. So, which includes one of his final forms where it literally made it like a defensive barrier around him so he could stop getting hit. So, no matter how you look at it, you have to hand it to him. Shigaraki is a terror that none of us would want to get a certain itch for. Alright, and now we move to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is only our second time going to this world, so it's going to be interesting seeing how we're going to observe the world this time, because last time, of course, was Satoru Gojo, who was, the most powerful sorcerer of that period. Now we're going to see the other side of the equation, because outside of sorcerers, there are also cursed energy beings, or curses. These are entities that are born out of negativity that flows out of humanity. So not unlike, ironically enough, Chainsaw Man, where certain entities are tied, certain demons and devils are tied to certain fears. It's the same thing way with Jujutsu Kaisen. And the more negativity and negative emotions that are bore out of humanity over certain things, they manifest into curses. And one of those curses, the worst of them all in many respects, was one called Mahito. Mahito was born out of, according to him, humanity's hatred for itself. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I mean, if you know, you know. Yeah. But because of this, because of him being born of humanity's hatred for itself, he had a goal that was infinitely simplistic. He wanted to wipe out humanity. Yes. He wanted to wipe out humanity and make it so that curses like himself and the allies he would soon find would go and conquer and dominate and rule. And he had the power to do it to a certain extent. And because of his nature, literally, he is manipulative, he is unsympathetic towards humans, he will set things in motion to help his overall goal, like he showed with Junpei, where he actually killed his mother, basically, to make him become a curse user, so that he could help get certain things done, so he could go bring to life Sakuna, which was his ultimate goal outside of wiping out humanity, because he thought, hey, as long as I can help Sukuna resurrect, it doesn't matter what happens to me. He was that kind of bad guy. And the problem with him, among many, many other things, is that because he is a curse being, a being of curse energy, a curse, you can't technically see him. All right? Think of it like Soul Reapers from Bleach, where, you had to be tied to their world in one form or another to see them, or have, like, certain spiritual energy. The curses in Jujutsu Kaisen cannot be seen by normal humans. There are specific cases where that can be broken, including being at a near-death situation. But generally, you can't see them, but you can touch them. Again, very much like Bleach. As you can see, these animes very much have crossover. I don't mind. So he can enact all sorts of techniques, and you wouldn't be able to see it. I wouldn't be able to see it, and we would feel them, like their presence, on us, but we could not see them. And he used that to devastating effect, including allying with fellow curses to actually trap Gojo, and they actually did it. He broke out, of course, but because he's Gojo. Nah, I'd win. But he did get caught. But he worked his own plan so that he could, take over, summon Sukuna, and that is why he had a connection with Yuji, who was, of course, the host of Sukuna. I apologize for saying the names wrong. Sukuna, something like that. I've never watched Jujutsu Kaisen. I've heard it's great, but not for me. So, what makes Mahito so dangerous, though, isn't just that he's a curse. That's the origin of his dangerousness, but arguably his true danger is that he's able to manipulate life and souls in a way to where it's disturbing. Okay, he has a skill called idle transfiguration. Basically, he can touch something like a person and then transfigure them into anything he wants. He even keeps, just to use Baby Yoda here as a reference, he even keeps little human figures on him that he's already transfigured so that he can have an army of beings to summon. Freaky. He can also technically damage your soul. It's a little complicated because it's about techniques and having to transfigure them, and it doesn't always work, as Jujutsu Kaisen fans will know. But he uses that, and then he also uses his intelligence, which is not insignificant, to manipulate his opponents and actually use their own negative feelings against them, because he actually gets stronger the more he can break someone's will. In one case, he actually broke Yuji's will, and that made him stronger. Mahito, not Yuji. Yuji would get stronger later, though, because anime protagonist. So that alone is pretty freaky. And he has his own curse techniques that uses his own curse energy to do all manner of horrifying things. One of them is idle transfiguration. He also has an entity called Black Flash, not to be confused with DC's Black Flash. Totally different. Okay. That one is like a massive burst of energy that actually distorts space-time, apparently. Cool. And he can't use it too often, and it actually is one of the ways he can be damaged, but he can unleash and do some serious damage to folks. And then there is innate domain and domain expansion. This is important, obviously, because domain expansion is their ultimate trump card. All right, with Gojo's, it was infinite void, and with Mahito, it's, how was it? Self-idolized, self-indulged perfection, something like that. I apologize. I have to remember a lot of stuff, folks. Okay. His domain expansion basically brings people into his domain, and he is allowed to transfigure them in any way he wants without resistance, basically. So once you're in his domain, you're basically screwed, with one exception. That exception being Sukuna, because when Mahito trapped Yuji and one other in his domain, he tried to attack Yuji's soul. Sukuna said, and that would lead to his ultimate defeat. Also, because of the nature of domain expansions, you can only use them basically once a battle, which even Gojo, I believe, had that limitation. And they can't be broken to from the inside, but they can be broken from the outside. So, which, it takes some effort, but it can be done. And this doesn't even talk about his own healing and fighting style, because they are cursed beings. Mahito and others are cursed beings. Physical damage basically means nothing. The only way to kill a curse is either through an exorcism or by just straight up destroying his soul, which is what Sukuna was trying to do in the domain expansion. So you can break him, you can burn him, you can freeze him, you can shatter him, you can dice him up into chunks. As long as his soul is okay, he'll be fine. And he's proven this by actually ignoring damage from his body, like oh, you attacked me, whatever, and then just fortifying and manipulating his own soul so that he can just pop right back. It's very annoying. And just in terms of combat, Mahito's basically a prodigy. He hasn't actually been around that long in terms of timeline, if I recall correctly. And over the course of like 2 months of training, he got to the level where he could fight Yuji and so many others without much issue. And again, him and his crew were able to trap Gojo, which is no small feat. So he's not exactly he's not weak. And it's even stated in the wiki I read that he's one of the most powerful characters in the show and manga. So his level of curse energy is beyond what you would expect. So, how did he die? Well, this one's not what you expect either. Why can't we just have straight up anime deaths anymore? So, again, he tried to trap Yuji. Didn't work. Sukuna said, And Mahito actually tried to flee. He was actually afraid of dying in that moment because his plans had backfired. And then, I kid you not, he actually got betrayed by one of his own allies who absorbed him into himself with his own curse technique. Psycho Gido, I think is what they said it was. So yeah, he got the Madara treatment, like he was doing fine, and then he was betrayed. What you gonna do? I guess you could say, as good as Mahito was, his gifts were also a curse. Alright, so who wins in a fight between Shigaraki and Mahito? This one is tricky at first until you look at the fine print. Because you might think, well, wait a minute, Mahito is immune to physical damage, which he technically is, with some small exceptions, obviously like Black Flash, which has been known to seriously wound him. They both have regeneration, so like that makes, damage moot. Mahito can go after souls, which, as we know in Death Battle, soul damage, soul manipulation, soul extermination is absolutely a way to win, as we saw with Bill Cipher versus Discord. They talked about it in Scooby versus Courage, etc., etc., etc. So Mahito can go after souls, and Shigaraki obviously has souls. Multiple souls, technically, depending on how you look at visages, and all that. Here's the problem. Shigaraki has two things going for him that would make most of Mahito's resistances and counters a moot point. Let's talk about souls first. At the end of My Hero Academia, as I noted, All For One was trying to straight up control Shigaraki, mind, body, spirit, whole 9 yards. And he almost did it. And then Shigaraki was like, He actually has his own version of soul erosion, which he can use to get rid of other visages, including getting rid of All For One, which he did. Yes, he had help with Deku at the end, but he was able to resist his own soul being destroyed, which All For One was trying to do, and then beat All For One back. This All For One who had, well over generations of life. All right. Remember, I'm pretty sure he was the first quirk user, if I recall correctly. He's been around a long time, so that there was 8, 9 generations of One For All to try and defeat him once and for all. Ha 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 ha. That was an intentional joke. So he was able to outsmart that guy and then resist his soul being manipulated. So Mahito has no chance. Not just that, Mahito has a problem to where he can attack a soul, but if there are other souls within a body, he has to take them out one at a time to get to the main soul. Visages, whatever, are technically mental projections, but they are also personalities, they are entities, they're souls, for lack of a better term. So Mahito would have to Mojito. Oh God, I need a mojito. Mahito would have to go after all the visages that are within Shigaraki. That's not easy to do. Not to mention, even though we know that Shigaraki defeated All for One in the end, it's incredibly fair to think that Death Battle will give him the All for One visage within him because they were joined literally within that second body, the new body that he got. So there's no reason for that not to happen, because it's not like, oh, but that's a separate character. In this case, it's actually not. All right, it's not outside help. It's literally in Shigaraki. Not unlike how Deku, despite how that death battle went, he could call on the visages of the past One for All members to get their quirks. So Mahito would have to destroy all of them, which he could do in time, but not before Shigaraki would just decay him. And that brings us to Decay. Decay is specifically stated to be a quirk that ignores resistances. That is vital, because resistances matter, and Mahito has resistances to physical damage and so on and so forth. But decay works on such a level that it can decay things that do not naturally decay without serious time lapsing and outside influence. All right, he decayed glass, he's decayed sand, which you can't exactly grab, and many other things that are non-natural. As such, between his mental protections, which Shigaraki obviously has because of his battles with All for One, and Decay, which can bypass any resistance, which means it could, in theory, destroy his soul, if not just guarantee destroy his soul, and the fact that because of his now higher level of quirkness, he would be able to unleash this at a great distance, and Mahito wouldn't think about it. It's like, oh, it's just a physical attack. No, it's not. Decay is much different. So now most of Shigaraki's quirks, like the punches, the air cannons, the explosions or detonations, and whatever, that wouldn't matter to Mahito. But Decay, that's the game changer. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, didn't you say that Mahito can't be seen by humans? Yes, but one of All for One's quirks, if you recall, two of them were Search and Resonance. Search can find anybody at any time. And eventually, Mahito is going to make it clear that, hey, I'm after you, Shigaraki. So he could just say, like, oh, who are you? I'm Mahito, and I'm about to kill you. Okay, search, find Mahito. And then he's going to see, at the very least, an outline, as shown in the anime. Resonance is one that can actually find or sense anyone around them. All for One was very tricky like that. So he can never get snuck up on. So between those factors, he's going to be able to find Mahito. So he can find him. He absolutely can touch him, because again, even if you can't see a curse, you can touch them and they can touch you. Many of Mahito's soul attacks, you have to touch Shigaraki. So the moment that happens, that links Mahito to the visages, and they can fight Mahito, and then Shigaraki can finish him off. So when it all comes down to it, Shigaraki is finally going to get to be the hero by taking down this curse. Who knew? All right, and with that, I am ending this episode of Todd Talk. Now, before I go, I do want to note that I'm recording this actually not on a Sunday, but on Thursday. Why? Because I am at a Comic-Con by the time you've been watching this, Planet Comic-Con, Kansas City. And the following weekend, which is when the Death Battle is going to air, is when I'm going to be at another con. But I will thankfully be back at a decent amount of time, so I will be able to get my review up. It will just be a little bit later. I just didn't want to throw you up like, where's Todd's reaction video? It will happen on Sunday. It's just going to take a little bit for me to get home and watch it all, okay? So, I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening. I'll see you around.